Hello again. Now, the Road Freight Association has been raising concerns about violent attacks on logistics vehicles. The association says effects often hit the consumers. It's calling on government to deal with this ongoing violence. Let's discuss this now with the association's CEO, Chief Executive there, that's Gavin Kelly. Mr. Kelly, good afternoon. Welcome to Today on eNCA. Thank you very much for your time. How widespread or deep is this problem of looting and violent attacks on road freight logistics vehicles?
Good afternoon, Dan, and good afternoon to all your viewers. And every time we sit and we chat on television, it's about some sort of attack. And this has been going on at least for the last 5 to 6 years, where road freight logistics gets attacked for whatever reason. There have been a number of attacks that have been really dealing with issues within the road freight sector. You will recall that we've had a number of discussions and a number of years where attacks were perpetrated on trucks because of the foreign driver issue. But that has more or less been resolved. You will know that the 4 ministers involved in that have been dealing with an 11-point plan, and there has been a fair amount of movement in terms of that. So we hope that that is going to be quietened down. But the bigger problem is that whenever somebody has an issue with somebody else, if it's a service delivery issue, or if there are communities that don't get on with one another, or it's a fuel price, things outside of the trucking fraternity that have nothing to do with any sort of relationship between employer or employee, then trucks get attacked. And again, 2 days ago, the very same thing happened. The group of people who were unhappy with service delivery levels or lack of service delivery, they then protested, and in that protest, they stopped a truck which was carrying vehicles and burnt it. The truck had nothing to do with any of these protests, happened to be passing along at the wrong time on the wrong route, and that is the problem.
Now, the problem...
Constant attacks chain.
Yeah, and these constant attacks, violent attacks and looting of trucks, as you said, even when there's nothing to do with the industry itself and people are fighting about in their own municipality, and then they target the trucks, has got short-term, of course, losses running into millions of rands, as you say in your statement, but there is a long-term impact to the economy and to the consumers directly.
Well, exactly, Dan. This is the biggest problem, is that, you know, the losses that you have right there in terms of a burnt-out truck and claiming from insurance, although we don't want those losses are pretty much contained in that incident, if you will. But the long-term confidence in terms of supply chains, and remember, a fair amount of goods moves through South Africa, moves through our ports, moves on these routes, and there are international companies and international customers who are now saying it's no longer efficient, no longer safe to move through South Africa, and they're beginning to move away from South Africa. And that means job losses. It means shrinkage in industries. It means that we will no longer do the work we're currently doing now.
And what's your appeal to the government? I mean, you said there is this other 11-point plan to deal with the internal industry issues, but now you are bringing this out because this is now more societal. What do you want the government to do?
Well, a very good question, Dan. And sometimes it sounds easy to put a couple of solutions on the table. But the very first thing is this, is that there seems to be this feeling, and not only in this industry, across a broad spectrum of industries, that crime pays. There doesn't seem to be a process or a well-oiled process to ensure that perpetrators are identified, that they are then arrested as may need be, and that then the legal process of dealing with this sort of criminal activity is dealt with, and that there is some sort of reaction for these sorts of activities. Surely you must be held accountable for what you're doing.
Yeah, and finally, very briefly, I mean, people must understand, as you remind us in your statement today, that 80% of South Africa's goods are transported via freight, via road. So if you stop the trucks, you damage the logistics sector, you're practically stopping the country.
You're going to stop the country. And the problem is, no matter how much we would like to have it that way or not, there just isn't another alternative. Rail is not doing what it needs to do. And even if these goods were on rail, would it be safer? That's another question. So we need to protect the lifeline of goods, of the survival of many of our citizens in the country. That's how they get their food, their medicines, and their essentials.
Gavin Kelly, the CEO of Road Freight Association, thank you for your time this afternoon here on Today on eNCA.